Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Glad to see all of. Oh, totally forgot to pull up the stream on my phone so I could look at that. Joining me this week is my host and co-host Peter. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Even though I was late. But no one noticed except the folk on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Otherwise, I think no one noticed.
Oh, Nestlig says he can't hear anything. Okay, well, we will get to Nestlig. We also have Nestlig here.
Yes,
So if you want to pull him up.
we have a Nest League.
We do have a Nestlig, but he's working on his mic issues at the moment, so technical difficulties, which is okay.
I think I just fixed it. Is my mic normal now?
No.
It sounds less clear than it usually does.
Yes. It sounds like you're in a box.
Yeah. While he's fixing that, in our live chat, we have DM, Fragmentary Changes Wing, Savage, Perpetual Motion Lungs Cobra, Icarus, Nan, Vestafreya, and Zach B. Hancock. I'm sure you will enjoy watching this stream because we're going to talk about one of our favorite papers that creationists love to bring up. Katina Pack-Bays, Captive Desk. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you. So this time I cheated a little bit, sorry. And Vadim, what's in the box? So normally I get sent these videos by creationists on Twitter, and I typically don't really watch them at all. We see all of it for the first time when we open it up. But today I happened to look at their citations because this video was sent to me by Immutable Destiny. Many thanks to Immutable. And the title of the video is and Ian Jen's here. Hello. The title of the video is these scientific. I can read. Reading is hard. See what I was saying earlier?
Yes.
These scientific papers destroy evolution. So, given that, I had to see what the papers were prior because I wanted to know if it was anything new or not. And it's not. It's nothing new. In fact, so two of them are technical papers, and one of them is a press release on one of the technical papers. And the papers are, both of which we've seen before, both of which I'm already familiar with. One of them we talked about in a recent video. Of course, one of the papers that these guys bring up is, Neo-Darwinism Must Mutate to Survive, which is a terrible paper by a doctor and an engineer or something like that. And then the other technical paper is, Brian Stevens, hello, is and Mr. Cliff, is that stupid paper about mitochondrial DNA barcoding, where the researchers basically said that the common ancestor of 9 and 10 species, something like that, can be traced within the last 100,000 to 200,000 years. And there was a series of press releases on that paper misunderstanding it as saying that the species originated within 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. Not that they share a common ancestor within that.
Did you know that there's a very unscientific tool to use and see whether or not they're correct when they say this paper disproves evolution? If you haven't seen anything in the news about evolution being disproven, and yet there's a paper out for a while, even to the fact that people on Twitter already know about it, and it disproves evolution, it doesn't. We would have heard, I think, if one of the best confirmed, for lack of a better word, theories was disproven.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
you'd think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really don't have a lot of papers they can point to. Like, because, well, for one thing, the paper that says like the common ancestor of species, and if it's based on mitochondrial, then assuming it's like the female common ancestor. But if it's right, which like, so for instance, if you do that for humans, right, if you find the mitochondrial Eve, which is again an unfortunate name, or Ian Chen for 7.99 says, "Hey Jackson and Peter, sorry I can't stay, but I'll savor the show after work." Ian from your future. Well, thank you. Let's do that. Thank you. Basically, what the paper says, or so sorry, for humans, we have mitochondrial Eve, so you can trace like the matrilineal line, back to when the like last just female common ancestor of all.
From mother to mother to mother, basically. Yeah.
Right.
So one line. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what matrilineal means. It's just mother to mother to mother all the way back. And if you follow that all the way back, all lineages, all our human lineages, just for us humans, meets like somewhere around 100,000 years ago, I think. Something like that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Which again is way older than what how old creationists think the Earth is, so that's problematic for them. But they try to pitch it anyways as like, hey, look, it's Eve, so this was the first female human. No, it wasn't. And Y chromosome Adam, which is basically doing what you do for Eve, but it's male line all the way back, so it's father to father to father. Do the same thing. You get an ancestor who is a bit more recent than the female common ancestor. Mr. Cliff for €2 says moo.
Hold on. Those are Brexit euros, otherwise known as British
Brexit euros.
Yeah, British pounds.
Oh, okay. So, Zach says the barcoding paper.
I have to tease people if they pay in British pounds. I have to tease them because we might even be joining them very soon if this government thing goes south.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Zach Hancock says the barcoding paper itself is also just so bad it was published in a journal that doesn't even have a recorded impact factor. Wow. There was also literally not even a method section. Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's that's not great. That really isn't good. I was just saying, like to add insult to injury, like, so yeah, the paper itself is not good. It's in a nobody journal. But in addition to that, the results, the conclusions of this paper were then misconstrued by the popular press. And then, of course, creationists ran with it because they don't care. They don't want to fact check it or any of that. So that's one of the papers, or that's the other paper, I should say. And so the third, these papers, so it's really just 2 technical papers and 1 press release on the barcoding paper. And that's it. That's literally all they provide. So, all right. Well, at any rate, are we ready to see how they present the results of these papers?
Oh, let's do it. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Trey, I think the science, the objective evidence is already there.
Can't hear him.
I mean, to be honest, I have no problem telling.
You can't hear? Hold on.
I cannot hear him.
Oh, my bad. Let's okay. I can do stuff and things.
Things and stuff.
And things and stuff. So
Trey, I think the science, the objective evidence is already there.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I have no problem telling people Darwinian evolution, it's dead. It's like anything else. It takes people being honest about the evidence. It'll take 10 to 20 years for the textbooks to be changed. It's dead. It cannot be resurrected.
Oh,
Peter,
pause for a second.
It's dead.
If
people want to be dishonest about it, they can. It's going to take time for people to realize it, but it's dead. Objectively, scientifically, it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
It started dead and it's still dead today. But in terms of where we're at in science and the objective evidence, it's dead.
So
fascinating.
Do
I wonder if it's
do you
dead.
think it's dead?
Peter?
Yeah. Do you think it's
Is it
dead? It could be dead.
It might be dead.
Yes.
You never know. I think it's dead.
I don't think it can be resurrected. It must be dead.
Mark or is it Stingler or Stringler? Mark Stingler. Okay. I don't know this guy, so let's look him up. Let's see. Does he have any
It's from the ICR, right?
Oh no. Oh no, it's even worse than normal. Because he's not just a creationist. He's like a natural health crazy guy.
Oh. Eesh.
Dr. Mark Stingler and Dr. Angela Stingler are two of the leading voices on evidence-based, functional, and integrative medicine. Nestle, do you know what we call evidence-based medicine? It's called medicine. That's just what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is my mic normal now? Hopefully.
Nope.
No, you still sound weird.
You sound like you're on a phone, but the one that still has the rotary dial.
I will leave for a moment. I'll come back later. Hopefully it will work.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, hurry back. Okay. I'm going to read from the Stengler's website, which is called the website's just Stingler. A message from Dr. Mark and Angela Stingler. Quote, "We are passionate about nutritional and holistic healthcare. This passion started long before our many years of medical training. Helping people achieve optimal wellness is our goal for patients and the public who follow our advice regarding holistic health. As naturopathic medical doctors, we have training in both conventional and nutritional holistic therapies. Unlike many doctors, we value non-toxic natural therapies as the primary focus of our treatments. Our training and nearly 3 decades of working with patients provide us with the knowledge to provide information." Okay, so he's used to repeating the same thing over and over.
It seems so.
And products that have the potential to greatly enhance people's wellness. Okay, so
does it say that they do these things through some kind of diet? Breatharian, maybe? I mean, it could be worse.
I mean, that's true. Let's see, product search.
We have a breatharian in our midst when it comes to creation science.
Wait, search or store. Hold on. Let me go back to the main page. Had something on it. Premium ingredients. Does it say anything? Oh, view products. Can I see that? Okay, here we go. We just got some multivitamins for, holy crap, $45. Jesus Christ.
Have to make money, Jackson.
Adrenal wellness, immune wellness, $55. Bladder wellness, glutathione plus, digestive wellness, zinc wellness. Okay, so
we're in the wrong business.
Turmeric, yeah, okay.
Jackson,
we sure are. Peter.
We are in the wrong business.
business.
There's so much easy money to make off of gullible people.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. So not only is he a creationist, he is an actual danger to like the lives of others. Okay, that's cool. It's fun. It's fine.
Which is why he repeats the word "dead" a lot, because most of his patients are dead. They can't be resurrected.
His patients, yeah.
They're dead because what we do doesn't help them. They just die, and so now all of them are dead. That's, I think, yeah. Now it fits.
Anti-vaxxarian. Yes, very true. Yeah, Zach makes a good point. This is just more evidence that if you buy into one pseudoscientific idea, you'll buy into any. Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's I'm sure it comes as no surprise to most of my audience that, creationists tend to be like far right wing. They tend to be anti-climate change. So they're like, anthropogenic climate change isn't real. A lot of times they're also on board with like, the 2020 election was stolen, blah, blah, blah. Vaccines are bad. And it's true. A lot of these ideas travel in the same circles. If you are creationist, you are probably right wing. And if you're creationist and right wing, you are almost certainly opposed to the existence of climate change. There's also, like pretty good a chance that you're also like vaccines are poison or something along those lines, which is kind of funny because um, the anti-vax movement has shifted political parties, which I mean it was more of a and you can read the book The War on Science by Sean Otto. It was predominantly originally more of a left-wing sort of like environmentalist kind of movement. It was like, we're getting back to nature. We want things to be natural, not to be like tampered with, whatever. It was part of like the anti-GMO crowd. And then something happened. COVID. We just so happened to have, Trump in office basically, who swung pretty much the whole right wing in our country, in the U.S., which became the Trump Party, not the Republican Party, which it's still pretty much the Trump Party. Um, it basically turned all of them, or sorry, not all of them. That's not fair. It turned many of them anti-vax. It became very much a anti-vax party. So, okay, and there's also Bill Maher, who's left wing or whatever, but he's anti-vax because he's an idiot. So, anyways, we can keep going.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creation.live. I'm your host, Trey. In each episode of this show,
Hi,
ICR
Trey.
scientists gather with subject matter experts, apologists, and other special guests to discuss pressing issues, whether that be ICR's current research, something new that's come to light in the scientific community, or something else entirely that ultimately impacts how science points to our Creator, the Lord Jesus Christ. We hope that these conversations are encouraging and enlightening in an increasingly chaotic world. I have with me today my co-host, Lauren.
It's funny you should say that, because the people creating the chaos are people like you.
Very true.
I mean,
Yep.
our Creator, Jesus Christ. I don't know what to
He's the
start.
bad Trey. Yes.
Oh,
The good Trey is Trey the Explainer. This is the bad Trey.
yes. Well, the good Trey has better hair than he has. Sorry, but I had to say
That's
it.
true.
I had to say it.
No,
much better
he's
hair.
very handsome.
Yes.
He's very handsome.
This
Yeah.
guy looks more like the logo that we saw for Creation.live.
Oh.
He's almost the same. Sorry.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Let's continue.
And I have with me today the special privilege to introduce Dr. Mark Stengler. We'll call him Mark Sr. And then Mark Stengler, we'll call him Mark Jr. So thank y'all so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're excited to have y'all on today. Today we're going to talk about just the idea that there's this misconception that evolution is a provable, observable fact, but in actuality, the scientific literature itself suggests otherwise. There's things in there that.
Let's pause. Okay, so remember, as I gave the game away at the start, the like body of literature that he's referring to that refutes evolution is 2 papers, which don't actually do that. One of those papers is, as Zach pointed out, it's a weird paper. It's not very good, but it doesn't refute evolution. It just argues that the like female common ancestor of these groups lived over 100,000 years ago, which, okay. The other paper just is a nothing nonsense paper that makes no good points at all. I'm sure we'll talk about it as they want to go through it. And then the third paper is like it's not even technical paper. It's just a news article about one of the papers. So like, and these papers, well, I think in fairness, actually, I think the Neo-Darwinism Must Mutate to Survive one came out like 2 years ago. I think it's from 2022. So it's pretty recent. But the other one's from like 2016 or 2018. And like that's kind of it. They don't have a lot of papers they can point to. They have 2. And the fact that they only have 2 papers that they keep pointing to like seems to indicate that they really don't have anything on their side. I don't know, Peter. What do you think about that?
Sorry, I was a little bit occupied because we got Nestlink back, and I was.
Oh, welcome back, Nestlink. Or what do you think about that?
I just came back, so sorry about that. Is my mic okay? No, yay!
Yeah,
it works. It did it.
I don't know why. I just restarted my laptop.
Sometimes that's all it takes, you know.
Yeah, it could be that for some reason the driver stopped working, and then usually a reboot will help. But I'm glad it's working again.
But anyway, so I was just saying this, like, considering that, like, the bad Trey here is, is saying like, oh, there's all this literature that argues against evolution, but they keep pointing to like 2 papers, one of which isn't even anti-evolution. So really, it's 1 paper. Like, do we? Oh,
did you
go ahead?
Like I'm reminded of something that was pointed out or like brought up by Moran in his book What's in Your Genome. And it's like one term, like he borrowed from somebody else, but I don't remember who. But the term is paradigm shaft. It's basically a fictional paradigm shift. So like, oh, it is like a completely different story, like what you've been told. Like it's like it's an overhyped BS basically, and that's what this reminds me of. Paradigm shaft. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty silly. Oh God. Oh no, Zach says there's a new paper by these guys in the same journal. Oh, gross. Yeah, they basically don't have anything to offer. So like, I don't know. All right, anyway, we can keep going.
Don't actually they fly in the face of evolution. So I would like to ask you, why do the scientific papers, why do they kind of show a different story than what the textbooks say or what media says?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, I think when you look at the scientific papers and you look at textbooks and so forth on the topic, what you're going to find is a different story than what people are told. Basically because the papers have to spell out and discuss the objective evidence. And when you look at the objective evidence, you don't see this type of, molecules to man story that people have been told. You don't see that at all. And so within those papers, because often they are written by people with an evolutionary bias, you'll see, some interesting discussions and thoughts. But when you look at the objective evidence, you don't see evolution in terms of, like, again, the molecules to man type of evolution. And of course, when I talk to people, I always want to know what you mean by evolution. Evolution, if you mean there's adaptation within kinds of organisms, within certain
6
parameters,
types,
fine.
Drink.
I agree with that 100%. Some people use the term microevolution. If you're talking about a fundamental change of one organism transitioning into a fundamentally different type of organism, I refer to that more as science fiction.
Yep. He's
Absolutely. Okay.
He looks so happy.
We have some differences there, and you.
Did you see how happy he looked? He was like nodding his head. He was like, "I do good. I do good. I do good."
Yeah.
Remember, this guy is not a biologist. He's a holistic natural medicine doctor. Like he's not. He doesn't read the technical literature on biology. That's not his job. His job is to prescribe, fake remedies to people and make loads of money off of it.
I love it.
Doesn't have any background.
I love it how he's the only one having a laptop on his lap, which is fine because that's where they're supposed to go. But I'm probably it's full of notes that he got from Dr. Kent Hovind, and we're gonna hear some of that because the rhetoric is fairly the same, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay. And the confidence level as well, by the way, which is disturbing.
You have mentioned to me before that you have 3 studies in particular that you think everyone should know that kind of point towards this fact that, hey, evolution's not all it's cracked up to be, or at least all that it's displayed as. So you want to get us started in that regard?
Well, sure. I mean, there's two studies especially I talked to a lot of people about, people in the medical field, which I'm in, some of my biology, friends, people who study.
You're not in the medical field. Do not tell people that you're in the medical field if you're selling vitamins. You're in the money-making business.
What does he do? Does he just sell vitamins, or does he just does he have a doctor? Is he?
He is a doctor, but he does natural medicine, quote. So he has a website, where he sells natural remedy medicine, which again, what do we call natural medicine that works? We call it medicine. So, he's
some of which are
all around.
Some of which are natural, like the many compounds that we use in medicine are from plants.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they act like pharmacognosy isn't an entire field of medicine. It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, no, he's just. Do you think any of them are in a respectable journal? No, it's just the two papers he's referring to are that barcoding paper and the Darwinism Must Mutate to Survive. Those are the papers he's referring to.
Also, one thing I also find funny to mention about these people who are who peddle these natural remedies and such. It's to mention the example of aspirin. Do you know where aspirin originally was extracted from?
From the willow tree?
Yes. It was originally extracted from willow tree. Funny enough, when scientists try to mass produce this compound for commercial use, it was actually found that they made a synthetic version of it, which is slightly different than from the compound that is found in the willow trees. But it turns out that this synthetic version is actually better than a natural version because it leads to less side effects. That's a bit of a funny thing, because most people would assume the opposite, because natural is it's a naturalistic bias that most people have. Oh, the natural compound must be better automatically. Now, sometimes it's not the case. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to point out somebody who is very pretty and very smart said she's referring to the what he said about the textbooks versus technical papers. Maybe it's because textbooks are published to give students a general idea about the subject they're being taught, but papers are updated and new material and with new material because we're still learning about science. That's the beauty of science. I hate the argument that textbooks don't say what the papers are saying or vice versa. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing I find frustrating sometimes about the textbook is they have one section or maybe one chapter, but most often one section on the origins of life, and they mention the old Miller-Urey experiment, but they don't mention anything about the metabolism first thing that I tend to favor. That's one pet peeve of mine, basically. Yeah.
Speaking about not mentioning things, Jackson, I put something in the private chat that I didn't want to mention, but I did notice.
Did you make?
I made a little bit. I made a little bit of fun of things that I just saw because no one can see.
Peter, you're lucky that I'm wearing pants. You're lucky I'm wearing pants. I could have. I put it on just to spare the two of you and Nestle. So I'm here. This is for you.
Yes.
Anyways,
for people who can't see it, Jackson is wearing what looks like one of Hoven's old Hawaiian shirts.
So it's my pajama pants. They have a branch of pine with pine cones on it.
Yeah, see pine cones, Hoven.
Mm-hmm.
That's
because pine trees and elephants, they can mate, and that's the eukaryote kind or whatever.
Yes.
You should have two matching pieces of one with pine cones and one with elephants. Then I would make a complete outfit.
We don't know if there's a trunk in there. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know. I didn't see that part. But let's continue because we're going to distract everyone in chat.
Evolution. There's two studies I always want to bring up because what we want to do is look at the objective evidence again. I don't want, emotional stories, fables, theoretical constructs. I want what the objective evidence shows. And so the first study is one that was published in 2018. And it was the largest DNA study ever done, essentially on evolution.
No, it wasn't.
It was published in the Journal of Human Evolution, 2018, by Stockel and Thaler. And in that study, it's very interesting. They took 100,000 different species, as they defined it. And this included humans. And what they did is they took a part of the DNA in mitochondria, not to get too complex.
100,000 different species, as they call it. One of them is humans.
First of all, that was definitely not one of the largest, or not the largest DNA study ever done. That's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. Let me see if I can find it. I'm kind of curious now because let me see if I can open it. I have it open.
It's also the case that the very authors were so annoyed by creationists.
Yes,
misrepresenting that paper that even they came out and saying like, no, our paper does not say what they say it says. They are misleading you.
Oh yeah, actually here it is. Note added by authors, December 4th, 2018, quote, "This study is grounded in and strongly supports Darwinian evolution, including the understanding that all life has evolved from a common biological origin over several billion years. This work follows mainstream views of human evolution. We do not propose there was a single Adam or Eve. We do not propose any catastrophic events." Yeah. Yeah, pretty bad. So there's that.
Jackson, there is a lot of talk in the chat about people not being able to see everything that was going on. So let me propose something. You can all go into the comment section and post what you think Jackson is wearing. And for the person closest, they will get a signed picture of Jackson in his pine cone song. Sorry. Never mind.
This is the first time I've ever had. This is the first time I've ever had chat all like champing at the bit to see what clothes I'm wearing. I have to say, I feel a little. It kind of gets my heart rate going a little bit.
Yeah.
So
it's my fault. Sorry. Well, I did put it in.
Zach is right. There's no materials and methods section. Like they just kind of talk about their results. It's just a bunch of like paragraph. Like that's not the way to put it. It's a bunch of like just like subsections. There, Jackson in tights. You would all be so lucky. But like, there's no. I'm going through it right now. I'm just scrolling through it. But yeah, there's no. It's not split into anything. Literally nothing. Okay, there's a summary and conclusion at the very end of the paper. No introduction, no materials and methods, no results, no discussion. Like it's just kind of like. It's so bonkers the way that this paper is laid out. It's crazy. Anyway, but also, yeah.
Which paper is that one? That's the not the
Stockel Thaler. Oh. Yeah, the Stockel paper. Yeah.
Oh, it's the Stockel paper. All right.
Yeah, there's nothing. They have a references at the very end. Thank God, right? So, yeah, no, yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. How this paper's laid out. Anyways, I'm sorry. Yes, it is a bizarre piece of writing. Very true. Okay, anyway.
Complex, but basically in humans and animals, you have two different types of DNA. You have DNA in your cells and you have DNA in the mitochondria, the organelles in your cells which produce energy. In any event, they took the same, what they call barcode,
I think he meant to say nucleus
of mitochondria DNA in all 100,000 species and in humans, and they compared them. And what they expected to find was you would see a genetic relationship amongst the different species. And so this is the largest genetic study ever done, so it should have a lot of weight.
Why does he keep saying that?
And the authors were interviewed in a publication called phys.org, which anyone can see online for free.
That's the second paper.
And the authors, who are obviously revolutionists, came out and were very honest. They said they were very surprised. Essentially, they were shocked by the findings. In other words, they had to go with what the objective findings found, at least in terms of if you're being honest. And what they found was there was no intergenetic relationship among species as one would expect with a Darwinian model. Just like you don't see the billions of transitional fossils you should see in the fossil record. You don't see it in the DNA, number one. Number two, with DNA, you can do analysis of mutations, and you can get.
I'm going to ask the stupid question. If you only look at the mitochondrial DNA, would you expect to see similarities between species?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, you can still do a nested hierarchy with them. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that, but the thing is they didn't even consider that, because that wasn't the purpose of that paper. They weren't trying to determine common descent or non-common descent. There was a completely different question that they were trying to answer.
Also, Zach saying that's just not what they found at all. So so the paper was looking at when was the common ancestor. Okay, so I'll just read from it. Several convergent quote. This is from the abstract. Convergent lines of evidence show that mitochondrial diversity in modern humans follows from sequence uniformity, followed by the accumulation of largely neutral diversity during a population expansion that began approximately 100,000 years ago. A straightforward hypothesis is that the extant populations of almost all animal species have arrived at a similar result consequent to a similar process of expansion from mitochondrial uniformity within the last 1 to several 100,000 years. Savage Perpetual Motion Lungs Cobra for $5 says, I see his knowledge of genetics is as advanced as his degree or is his knowledge of medicine. Sorry, is as advanced as knowledge of medicine. And then Zach says, their purpose was one, does mitochondrial DNA delimit species? And two, when did species arise? Not whether all species are related. Right. And so according to this paper that he's citing, that Stengler here is citing, they're looking at when did these species originate. And according to the paper, most species that they looked at originated somewhere between 100 and 200,000 years ago or so, something like that, a few 100,000 years. Okay, that's not really weird. That's not super unusual, right? They're going to share.
Also, it's not even just not even the species specifically. They only looked at the coalescence of the mitochondrial DNA per species, and the coalescence is also not the origin of the species itself. Yes. They are distinct concepts.
Right, maybe
these authors want to define species in terms of mitochondrial DNA, but yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, if you're looking at just like we said earlier, if you want the matrilineal, common ancestor of all humans, or the patrilineal common ancestor, that when that those lines coalesce in humans is way closer to today than when humans originated as a species, right? Because the patrilineal ancestor of all humans lived somewhere 90 to 100,000 years ago, something like that. But humans originated as a species upwards of 300,000 years ago. So this is there's obviously no correlation between these. All right. Yeah, we also don't know. This is Zach again. We also don't know which species they looked at, how many individuals they used per species, etc. Because again, no method section, right? Also, I do think it's really funny that Stengler here is saying that he talks about this paper with his patients, which is really weird.
It's what you need to do, Jackson. That's what you need to do if you're a con. You have to talk to your patients about things they don't understand, and you don't understand, so you can kind of deflect from the fact that you're just selling them vitamins to get better. I mean, these people make me so mad, especially when it comes to healthcare, and they try and sell snake oil. Anyway, sorry. Want to continue?
Yes.
Okay.
The timeline of how old an organism is. The other thing that shocked them was essentially they concluded that all animal and human life arose around the same time. So again, if you're a Darwinist,
that doesn't make any sense.
You come to these kind of conclusions. So I point that study out because
see, the woman got it right. It doesn't make any sense. It's pretty much what we were thinking.
Because look, when you're in a court of law, if I put some bones up on the table as evidence, it could have some weight, depending, what you can describe about it. But there's a lot you don't know. You don't know who it came from. Most, fossils are incomplete. But if I take the DNA from...
He forgot to say that we don't know if they had any kids. By the way, I love this still.
That's true. He did forget to say that.
People should take this
he's
still.
He's just copying Kent Hovind. Like, he's just a Hovindista. There's nothing more in his brain going on. You just watch some Kent Hovind. And, that's also not surprising, because doesn't Kent Hovind also sell, like, fake medicinal remedies?
Yes.
Yeah. Vitamin B17.
Yes.
Another vitamin. It's a compound that breaks down into cyanide when you metabolize it. So if you eat too much of that stuff, then you can get cyanide poisoning. And I believe some people have gotten that from like eating too much apricot seeds.
Yes.
They got cyanide poisoning.
His son famously got a strike on his website and had to remove it because Eric was advertising it too. What is it? The organization that controls medicine in the U.S.?
Oh, the CDC? Was it CDC or the FDA?
The FDA. The FDA.
Probably the FDA.
Yeah, the FDA launched a strike and he had to remove it, and then he didn't remove it completely, so he got another strike, and then he finally removed the entire thing from his website.
Lol. Dinguses.
Yes.
What a bunch of dinguses. And that's when that's when creationism is like kind of silly, and flat earth too. It's like, these are just kind of silly. They're a little funny, but like that's where it borders into like they're actually legitimately harming people.
They are.
And I mean, in a sense, I think creationism is harmful, but like it's not like immediate bodily harm. No, like suggesting people eat pills that will metabolize into cyanide, that is actively harmful for your body.
Yes, that's actively killing people.
Yeah. So that's why like the medicine stuff is no joke. I take such glee in destroying the stupid like fake medicine people. Like we did the video on that idiot RFK, Robert Kennedy. Absolute nitwit.
He has gone full on HIV denier. Like I didn't even know that he was an HIV denier.
Are we surprised though? I mean, come on.
Actually, why am I surprised?
Jonathan Wells is like an HIV denier, which is pretty wild. Because he's, you don't hear about HIV denial really all that often anymore. Like, it's not super common as it used to be. But
around the point when all these you had a few AIDS patients who were like wrapped up into this denier movement, and right around the time that they started to die because they weren't willing to take the medicine because of these other HIV deniers saying to them like, "Oh, it's all a conspiracy," and then these even though these patients were denying the existence of HIV, they are still victims of their the other persons who were like feeding them this bullshit. So I don't blame the victims. I just find it very sad that these people were convinced to not take the medicine, and then they died as a result of that. And even the child, like there's one famous one who was pregnant while having HIV, refusing to take the medicine, and she and her child died from AIDS later.
Yeah,
it's such a sad story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay. Well,
that's why they are quiet. Yeah, that's why they're not quiet about it. Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smitty makes a good point. HIV isn't the hot new disease anymore. That's true. Yeah. Now we have all of our, COVID conspiracies like it was made in a lab and whatnot. Which I understand when when all the COVID stuff first happened in 2020 and everything, and people are like, oh, it came out of China, and especially this area that has like a virology lab. That seems kind of convenient. And okay, listen, I can understand if you don't do any research beyond that point, how you might be tempted to think maybe the researchers at the Wuhan lab were maybe they had cultured it or something, or then maybe they didn't even intentionally do it. Maybe they just had it and someone improperly handled some test tubes or something and it got out. Maybe that happened. Well, no.
Personally, I think
no, it didn't happen.
Personally, I think the most likely, I still don't buy it, but the most likely lab leak scenario is this: the scientists isolated this virus from nature, cultured it in the lab, and then it leaked from the lab that way.
Right. And that's what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, of course, many people who will say lab leak theory, they will assert that the virus has been deliberately engineered as a bioweapon.
Yes,
there's no evidence for that.
That's what Ron Paul was like when he was grilling Fauci on the Senate floor or whatever in Congress, whatever you want to say. He was like, that's when the term gain of function was being thrown around by everyone, and every person was pretending to be a virologist, being like, oh, it was gain of function research. Well, at the time, we didn't have any evidence that there was any gain of function research on COVID being done. So at the time, no, we just simply didn't have the evidence to support that. And so people were drawing their own conclusions, of course, because they're going to do that. And now we have actual intel on what the Wuhan lab was working on at the time COVID started spreading, and none of the things they were working with could plausibly be interpreted as ancestral or even closely related to COVID. So none of it. Yeah. So there's nothing they were working on that was anywhere close. So you have to, at this point, say something to the effect of well, our government, the U.S., well, the U.S. government is also trying to cover up the Chinese lab leak, I guess. But it's why would we do that? What would be the point of that? Because these investigations were done largely under Trump, right? And then, of course, they continued under Biden. But it's why would we protect the Chinese if we're opposed to them? None of the conspiracy theories make any sense. You have to come up with these insane scenarios for we're protecting the Chinese or something. I don't know.
There's definitely an argument to be made about more transparency. I now remember. I now remember one recent paper that came out, or I forgot the details, but there was one scientist from I believe from the UK who confidentially got data from Chinese scientists, and that data showed samples from the Wuhan wet market, and it shows a very consistent pattern from a single source. Basically, it shows the virus came from one specific area where they were handling mammalian, exotic mammals, basically, and the pattern was very consistent with a spread from there. And but that data was withheld for many months or even years, and that's how this UK scientist was very very pissed off that this data was withheld for that much time. The excuse was that the scientists were working on this data, so they wanted to publish it first before anybody else can publish on this data for private reasons. But of course, I still think it should have been made public as soon as possible. Yeah.
Well, I agree 100%. Things being as transparent and as easy to access as possible. That's great. That's always a good thing. I fully agree with that. There were a few other things that people tried to argue, and I know we're like way off topic at this point. But like there were other things people tried arguing were like gain of function research, like the spike protein, which is actually very funny because the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 is actually a lot worse at adhering to our ACE2 receptors than that of like MERS back in the day. So like you'd have to say we took viruses that we know worked better and made them worse, I guess. So again, it's like you have to come up with really, really wild conspiracy theories for, yeah, we made it, but we made it worse, and we're covering the Chinese for making it or something, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, we can keep going.
It's luckily that it isn't as like, maybe it's not a one-to-one relationship, but if COVID was as bad as MERS, like MERS isn't very infectious, but at an individual basis, it's much more deadlier,
right?
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're lucky about that. But even still, like even though COVID is less deadly on an individual basis, it infects a lot more people, and therefore the death toll can get huge. You know, now it's like several million. And people are still like, it's no big deal. Like, still, I don't understand that sentiment. Yeah.
DM says, almost as if those conspiracy theories are just wrong. Their adherents aren't willing to admit it. Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I think a lot of them, it's just that they don't do the research at all. Because I've even seen people I like Nathan Robinson kind of push the like, for instance, the like lab leak hypothesis, and it's like, and I think John Perry also was kind of like tentatively pushing it for a little bit, and it's like, come on, guys, come on, don't do this, please. You know, and I don't think John Perry does it anymore. I think he kind of jumped off of it after that paper that was like arguing for the lab leak got retracted because it was really bad. So like it's just, you know, you just got to be careful in general. You just got to be careful. That's all I'm saying, right? So anyway, we can keep going.
Now you can have an airtight case, and as we all know, DNA, can set you free or can find you guilty. Mm-hmm. So here we have the largest genetic study ever done.
I don't know
and
why
has this been
that.
all over the news? No, I don't think it has been. But published in a major
He's still referring to a courtroom setting, as if science is anywhere close to what you do to prove things in a courtroom. For some reason,
and Peter, you know what's so funny about that? Mm-hmm. Because creationism has literally lost in court, and evolution has won in like every case. And so I don't know why they like the courtroom analogy so much. It doesn't work for them.
No. Well, I mean, you can deny everything, right? It's
that's true. Yeah.
It's basically what they do. It didn't happen. True. Nuh-uh is their best defense.
Mainstream journal of Human Evolution, which has to do with evolution, right? And so it shows the exact opposite. What does it show? It shows the biblical model. It's exactly what we read in Genesis. Mm-hmm. Essentially, in 6 days, we have all of life formed. Each kind reproduces its own kind. So we find the biblical model in the largest genetic study ever done. Thank you very much.
Why do you think we're not seeing that in the mainstream news? Because
so let's pause. Okay, so again, remember this: the journal that he's referring to, the Stokely-Thaler paper was not published it was not published in a reputable journal, as near as we can tell. It was not published. He's saying like, oh, it's this super reputable journal. No, it isn't. This journal doesn't even have an impact factor. Like, it's nothing. It's a nothing journal. It's not the largest genetic study ever done. I don't know why I keep saying that. We can't, as Zach pointed out earlier, we can't verify that they did in fact actually run all these tests because no materials and methods. So we don't know what genes, what organisms they actually used. And also the paper itself says that the common, or the, if we're assuming that it's the common ancestor, right? It says that it lived over 100,000 years ago. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter or Nestlig, but like that's a little bit older than 6,000 to 10,000 years, right?
Yeah, but
ever so
it
slightly,
doesn't matter
Jackson.
as long as they can spin the paper as if saying like, oh, all the species originated within this at the same time. Of course, they don't mention what time the paper is saying. They also don't make a distinction between species originated and the last common ancestor of a species. There's a difference, yeah. We've already clarified that point several times, but we have to clarify all the time.
And I want to take a leap here. The woman just asked, why don't we see this in the mainstream news? The right answer is because it's not true. And I'm curious what they think is why we don't see this in the mainstream. It has to be a conspiracy, right?
I'm actually like, I'm sure they're going to say like the news has an anti-evolution bias, which is kind of funny because the paper's not anti-evolution and it was reported on in the news. Like, I specifically remember this paper getting a lot of press. Now, most of that was negative press from other scientists, but like it did in fact get press. And he even referred in the citations for this video. One of the citations is a press release for the Stokely-Thaler paper. So
now I'm curious
when they ask
what the answer is.
Okay, yeah, we can see what our answer is. Yeah.
Now go ahead. You wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I do want to hear what their response is. You're right.
Okay.
I didn't even hear about that, honestly. When did that come out?
That was 2018.
Okay, so it's pretty recently. Why do you think we didn't see that in the mainstream news? Why is that not being published?
Well, when scientists come out with papers and different publications come out, it's like anything else. We do use the media in different fields, including in medicine, again, which I'm in, to kind of promote what you want to promote, right? So you're not going to have your publicity department promote something you're not necessarily want to get out, which you're going to make your colleagues upset about. And so, and it's the type of thing also our major institutions, educational institutions, I mean, let's face it, they have faculty which has a bias towards Darwinian evolution. It's almost like a religion to them. Yeah. And so they wouldn't be too happy about these things. But again, it's published in a mainstream secular journal. You can't say there's some Christian bias to it. And these are the conclusions they came to the point where, like they said, they were surprised and shocked by the results, but this is what they are. Now, to this point, I haven't seen anyone refute the findings.
But it's still sitting out there for anyone to see, but they're not going to make a big deal about it.
Right.
Here,
okay,
let's pause,
that makes sense.
Pause for a moment.
So I'm going to...
Okay, so I think I can take a guess as to why we didn't see this in like I don't know, like Fox News, which is probably what they're referring to, or CNN or MSNBC, something like that. I think I can take a guess as to why we didn't see it there. And the reason is quite simply, it would be too difficult to explain. Like, having to explain the concept of like common ancestry within a population, or like coalescent models for these species, like that's just too difficult to explain to a general audience. I'm sorry, it's too much. Most of the time, if there's a scientific find that makes the news, it's like a handful of things, right? It's either nutritional news, right? Because what's going to help you lose weight, or it's a dinosaur, or maybe it's something to do with like space. It's some big technological thing. Often, some big piece of technology that either helps with like agriculture or like warfare or space. Something like that. Or climate change, right? But like things like this, like genetics news or genetics research is typically not going to make the news because it's just too hard to explain. It's too hard to explain to a broad audience. So you can find press releases out there on it, but it's not going to be on Fox or CNN or MSNBC. It's going to be, like phys.com or whatever, or like Live Science or something like that, right?
It's also going to be news.
Like the Human Genome Project, probably. Yeah.
It's also going to be news targeted at a smaller audience, so it's not going to get you the views if you report on this. You need to bring the news that the masses are interested in, not a small part of people who are science-minded, I guess.
Right, yeah, because like it's easy to pitch like dinosaur news to a general audience. Everyone knows what a dinosaur is.
Yes.
But it's not as easy to pitch, we compared sequences of mitochondrial DNA, and this is how we figured out when the last common ancestor of this species lived. Like, what? You're gonna try to explain that? No, come on, you can't do that. So it's just not gonna work. That is the most likely reason you're not going to see it. It's just not interesting. It's not interesting to most people, and it's too complicated to explain to most people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like that, of course, they went with, because they're creationists, it's a conspiracy. There's a conspiracy to like keep the news down, right? Like this anti-evolution news. We gotta keep it under wraps. We gotta keep a lid on it. We can't let the people know, even though it's like freely and obviously accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny to me that they don't ever really grapple with that fact that everything that they say is always freely accessible, right? When they say the evolutionists want it to be hidden, but it's like never hidden. It's always just out there.
But that's
to find.
That's with every conspiracy theory, because if you look the people who do the videos, the things about 9/11, no one knows this, but I found it. You found it. You're the only one who found it. So how were you able to find it if no one else can find it? Because it's readily available, and you just misinterpreted data. That's why no one can find it, because no one is misinterpreting it the way you do.
Right, yeah, unless it's like you are the only person to like get an interview with so-and-so who has like, firsthand of information on this. Unless you're doing that, it's just freely accessible information. That's all it is.
Yes.
I don't know. It's very stupid.
And what you just said never happens, because they never do an interview with someone who can actually speak on the topic. Because that would prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Take a look at this from more of a Christian perspective. You said it fits the biblical model. How can we use this?
Yeah, for God's sakes, don't let bias interrupt us here. So you're accusing other people for being biased. And let's now look at it from a Christian perspective, as if that's not, by definition, a bias. The argument that you're bringing up, that you think the other people are flawed, that's the one you use.
This particular study to advance the faith, advance the idea of, the biblical model of creation. What can we do with that?
Well, I think when Mark and I are talking to people and we meet people, we do a lot of evangelism. So we meet people from all different walks of life. When we're talking to people, we just, we get to know them, just for a minute or two, and find out what kind of work they do, or if they're in school, what they're studying. And we find out if they have, a background in, say, chemistry or the hard sciences or physics, or especially biology. Engineering is a very good kind of leap to talk about this type of thing. And we start talking. Quite often, the topic of evolution will come up. We're Christians, and what we're talking to them about, and we just start asking them questions. What they believe and what.
Like, is it me, or is he increasingly sounding more like Kent Hovind? Like, not just the thing he's saying, but his voice begins to sound like Kent Hovind.
Yes.
He does, like he's gradually becoming Kent Hovind. Yeah, he's morphing into Kent Hovind.
He's the bringing sound like lowering his voice like that. Basically.
He pulls. They're sitting there like, wait a second. They pull his mask off. Kent Hovind, what are you doing?
Yeah. And how
did all come down to Alabama for Dinosaur Adventureland?
And how did you get Eric here, and why is he so quiet? Because he hasn't said a word. Junior hasn't. Is he there just for window dressing? or I mean,
hasn't he always been? I don't know.
No, his son. He's got his son with him. He's sitting next to him, but he hasn't said a word yet.
Yeah, no, I'm saying Eric has always been window dressing.
Yeah. So maybe that's why he's got his son with him. And to annoy Kent, because he still has his son with him. Whereas Kent, well, we all know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Why they believe it. And quite often evolution does come up. And so what I like to point out to them are key studies like this showing the objective evidence is in our favor. It's not in the favor of Darwinian evolution. Matter of fact, when you start looking at everything in totality,
one paper.
When you start looking at biological complexity, biological science, all the hard sciences, combine that with archaeology, predictive prophecy in the Bible, the manuscript evidence, the eyewitness.
Wait! He's just going into like arguments for like Christianity now. He like forgot what he's talking about. He went from like you talk about biology to archaeology to the manuscript. The what? Huh, sir? You're like slipping into your Lee Strobel like shtick and going from
he's literally listing all the fields of science that disagree with the biblical model, which I think is ironic.
I'm sorry, Nessa, I cut you off.
Oh no worries. Like I was just saying, like he's just saying buzzword after buzzword. Like he's saying like biological complexity, biological science. What was I saying again?
Yeah, he's like it's like he forgot like mid sentence what he was listing. So he's like, if I'm listing fields of science, it must have been things that support like the Bible being true. So it's what? Huh? He's like jumping from one apologist to another.
I'm not sure about this guy. Vadim Lumovsky Radchenko said this guy found Noah's Ark and Sodom and the Tower of Babel. No, that was the other stupid guy who's passed away. Ron Wyatt.
Nan says biological biology. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This account, wow. I mean, the reality is, what I try to point out to people nicely, the evidence is a landslide in the favor of our belief system. Mm-hmm. Now, what's the evidence for your belief system?
No. The landslide was actually Noah's Ark, found by Ron Wyatt. That was the landslide. Remember? That was literally a landslide in Turkey.
Oh my gosh.
Because often evolution does come up, and I think Mark would agree. What's been your experience with that?
I would agree that it's shocking how often that evolution can be a barrier. Darwinian evolution can be a barrier, especially to college students who are studying the sciences, because they're bombarded with not just the science or the so-called science of Darwinian evolution, but there's also a philosophy behind it. There's a worldview.
I take it he's talking about creationists who finally get to university and then get bombarded with science they've never heard of, and they're not allowed to read because it conflicts with their worldview. That's what he's talking about?
Almost certainly, yeah. I had a creationist genetics professor, and I didn't know that at the time because she never explicitly said it, which is why I didn't know. But she did do a lot of very odd and suspicious, or she said odd and suspicious things during the class. At the time, I was just kind of like, that's really weird, I don't know, that's odd. But like later when I was told that, I was like, oh, well, everything she said made sense now. Because for instance, one thing she did was she had like, this is a class on genetics, and she had a single slide in the entire class that was about evolution. One single slide. She very briefly mentioned it, and like we never talked about evolution again. And then she also said that there was no junk DNA. Like she just said it didn't exist at all. And I sent her Dan Grauer's 2017 paper, and she just kind of like ignored it. So Yeah, it's very odd. Oh, because like during this class, she's like, "Yeah, some scientists say there's junk DNA. I don't really believe them." And I went up to her after class. And I was like, "So, like, what do you make of like lines and signs and pseudogenes then?" And her response was, "Oh, I think they probably have function." And that's the same argument you get from creationists, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you look at lines and signs and pseudogenes and all these and like ERVs and stuff, and we can't find functions for the vast majority of these. Yeah, some of them do have function, but like the vast majority of them don't. They're not under purifying selection. We can find there's no they're not doing transcription at any regular rate. Their transcription is like indistinguishable from background noise, basically.
Yeah.
But
And
Jackson,
There's
so
also
Jackson,
oh,
I
sorry,
mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
God works in mysterious ways. He could have put that DNA in there, and it may have a reason that we mere fallible human beings will never discover because it's part of
that's true.
God's plan.
It's very true. Yeah.
It's all
What were you
there
saying,
for
Nestle?
His glory.
Mhm. I was just I'm so sorry for interrupting you if you were
No, go
not
ahead.
finished
No,
yet.
go ahead.
Like I was just saying that like the thing you mentioned about like they are not under purifying selection, and so it's inconsistent with the idea that like they like most of the genome is like restricted on the function. But of course, they will insist that like is conservation is not a very reliable indicator of function, because like even which is very odd, especially for them to say, because they will always also like in a different subject they will always insist that like to get a functional sequence or a protein like that, it has to be a very very specific sequence, like no exceptions. Every nucleotide or every amino acid has to be in
Right. Any
exactly
mutations
order.
are deleterious. Right.
Exactly. But then when the topic turns to junk DNA, then they will say like, oh, conservation is not a reliable indicator. What? Like those two things are very inconsistent with each other. That's all I'm saying.
Has Dan Stern Cardinal done a creationist contradiction on that yet? Because if he hasn't, he needs to get on it. I don't know if he watches my channel, but if he needs,
so either function is like a very small portion of sequence space, or like I agree it's a very small portion of sequence space, but not as small as they would have also believed, but still it's very small compared to the total sequence space. But then when you say that an unconserved sequence, like an unconstrained sequence, it doesn't matter what mutations it may experience, like it appears to evolve neutrally. Any mutation doesn't matter. It somehow it can maintain function even though it mutates like crazy. It makes no sense from there, but even from their perspective about the narrow functional region of sequence space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's one of those fun creationist contradictions. Like they can't even get the lore right, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
That's anti-God. So it's not just that they're getting this Darwinism shoved down their mind, but also that this philosophy that says that we don't need God. God has nothing to do with our lives. And so if you're trained in that, you go to 4 years of college or high school or however many years, and you're told this, then obviously when it comes to faith, to the Christian faith, you might have this idea that faith is opposed to reason, that if I want to succeed in my field of science or whatever I'm studying, or I just simply want to be a rational person, I don't want to check my brains out the door, well, I can't be a Christian. Because that's opposed to reason and using your mind.
But literally no one says that.
Like you showed.
And so
no one says you have to stop being Christian at the doors to the lab. No one says that.
Yes. And also
except
I would like this guy to point out one single thing that we can prove where we need God. One single thing. And not based on faith, but based on actual facts. I'm pretty sure he can do that.
Well, I mean, you're probably right, but my issue is just this like this persecution porn nonsense that creationists love to do. Oh, you have to check your faith at the door. Like, no, I mean you check your biases at the door. Kenneth Miller will say that, but like you don't you don't like say, okay, well, I can't be a Christian here. No, that it's just you have to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Like that's all it takes to be a scientist. You don't has nothing to do with your religion, with your skin color, your nationality, your ethnicity. None of that has nothing to do with any of that. It is completely and utterly irrelevant to all that. That's what's so great about science. That's the thing that makes science so cool is it's universal. It doesn't matter if you are a person of faith or not, if you're white or black or gay or straight or whatever. It doesn't matter because the science works. It just works. And that's so cool. And it's like it's embarrassing that people like him, like the Stenglers, are out there being like, oh, science is biased. Like, no, it's not. You're biased. So
I'm wondering
anyway.
if you work at the Institute of Creation Research, do you have to leave your Quran at the door? Or are you allowed to bring that in? Because that's probably not going to work with these people.
With this study and other examples that this is false, this dichotomy between faith and reason, that if you want to be a Christian, you can't use your mind, which we know that we're commanded to love God with all of our mind. And so I think it's a helpful stepping stone to show unbelievers that you can be a Christian, you can still do science well, you can be a scientist, you can be a doctor, you can just simply enjoy the sciences that God's created, and still be a follower of Jesus, that they're not opposed to each other. But just like, we saw today at the museum, all these great science.
You still can do science well as long as you ignore most of the science because it goes against your holy book. That's basically what we have right here. Now we've got a scientific painting. Cool.
Who've been followers of Jesus history just simply shows that it's not true. You can follow Jesus, be a faithful Christian, and also excel in the sciences or whatever field.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true,
Mark
because
Jr.,
no one cares.
I'm curious because if I'm not mistaken, you're still completing your education right now. Is that the case? Are you still okay?
Yeah.
So within those educational realms, what are some personal ways that you've actually seen this acted out in real life, where maybe a professor, you don't have to name names, but just maybe a professor or a fellow student just has this perspective, and how I'm sure you've been confronted with things that have challenged you mentally and intellectually, because the other side, evolution, is very loud. So what are some things that have helped you, whether in interacting with people who don't believe this, or even just in your own mind as you hear some of these evolutionary lies, even taught from very intelligent people? What are some things that have helped you?
You can also name names. We're not afraid to put people on blast.
For sure. I think my journey has been a little different. So I've gone to Christian school for undergrad, grad, and then now post-grad. This doesn't totally answer your question, but when I went to grad school, I went to a more liberal Christian school, where it's interesting to see some of the philosophy, I guess you could see in secular schools that has to do with more liberal type of thinking. And I don't know if my grad school would have supported Darwinian evolution or not. There probably would have been some yes, some no.
He keeps saying liberal when he means factual.
Also, he just straight up went to creationist colleges. Like, that's it.
Yes.
That's what he's saying. He straight up went to a creationist like undergrad. So yeah, no, he's
also notice that it's a very, although I think there's a correlation, but still he's equating Christians who accept evolution as automatically liberal, basically. He's equating liberal with evolution. Almost.
Well, I think he's saying, like, in terms of, like, I think what he means, to kind of steel man here, Is he's saying in reference to like the biblical text, right? He's saying they're more conservative in their reading of Genesis versus they're more liberal in their reading of Genesis as like it's more metaphorical, I think is what he's saying.
Right.
I don't think he means like they're literally like on the left of the political spectrum. I think. I could be wrong, but I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I get the vibes of that, but you may be right. Yeah, you may be right.
Katina just said in the chat he's hesitating. Daddy's watching. Yes, he has to be very, very careful what he's saying right now, because Dad might have a laptop, but he will smack him in the face with that thing if he does something wrong.
But also, do we think here that like Spengler Jr. here is going into like fake medicine also, just like Daddy? Do we think he's going the same route?
Jackson, that's where the money is. When you grow up in the family business and you make a lot of money off of gullible people, obviously that's where you're going to go. No matter what kind of education you're getting. So the woman said, "You're still completing your education." I don't think it's ever going to be complete.
Yeah, to say he completed his education would imply that he got education in the first place, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Anyway.
So you see that, and to be honest, it does affect other areas of the Christian faith. So there is a trickle-down effect. It's not just, if I believe that Darwinian evolution might be true, it doesn't affect any other part of my Christian faith. Well, then you start getting to things like, well, maybe other parts of the Bible aren't true, or now we reinterpret other, ways we read Scripture. So it is important, to be certain of what we believe regarding the accuracy of the Bible, the inspiration of the Bible. So that's kind of from a Christian perspective I've seen. Speaking just to people who have gone through a different experience than I have had just simply secular education. What I've noticed, especially as I see my dad talk to them, is that they simply haven't been challenged from the opposing view before.
Or they think there isn't one at all.
Right. Exactly.
Well, there isn't.
So it's just
stunning
to think that you're at a university,
like,
you're supposed to be
pause for a sec.
An institution.
Like, I mean, there isn't. Creationism is not an intellectual opposition to evolution.
No.
It's not. It's ignorant people and grifters and liars is the creationist camp versus the actual scientific consensus and scientific community.
The opposition only exists either on in politics or on the internet or or maybe sometimes in the news where like I don't know, something crazy happens I think even the Stokel paper also got caught in the news, and for not a big splash, but some news articles were talking about it. I remember when it came out.
Well, that's what we were saying.
Yeah,
well, that's what I was saying earlier, because Phys.com covered it, and I think there was probably an article in Live Science or something. So yes, there were some online news, science news sources that did cover it, which is why they had to come back and do the
clarification
disclaimer. Disclaimer clarification. It's actually our paper is ostensibly not supporting creationism. So it did in fact get coverage. That's what we were saying earlier. How do they square the argument they make that these papers are hidden from the public, but also they're freely accessible? Well, how can you have it both ways? Are they really being hidden, or are they not actually being hidden? They're just not worth the effort, right? Come on, which is it? Which I'm sure to them they'd be oh, it's definitely the former because reasons, whatever.
I like what Festa Freya just said. Evolutionists are very loud and preachy. You can't go to a public square without those damn Darwinists preaching at you and handing out Darwin's book. it's literally something that I used this week on Twitter, where someone was, and this is weird because there was this guy who said that the LGBTQ community was cramming their stuff through our throats, which you would never see Christians do. And so that's
okay.
Basically, I used that argument in a tweet against him, and then went on to look at his Twitter profile, which is nothing but pictures of trans people, nudes.
Yeah.
If they believe that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this guy is the only thing he tweets in public without responding to other people is nude pictures of trans people, pre-op trans people.
Fascinating.
Yes. So,
well, if you look, there was a study done that looked at the incidence of like the word trans in like left-leaning versus right-leaning political spaces. And funny enough, right-leaning political spaces use the word trans way more often than left-leaning ones do, was the findings of the study, which I'm not super surprised, I guess. It's like the old like the homophobic like
yes,
pastor or whatever who's
trans is the new
having
gay.
sex with the right. He's having sex with like a male stripper. They're doing coke, whatever. Yeah, exactly. It's the same sort of thing. So
Yeah, trans is definitely the new gay. They found a new scapegoat to butcher and demean and misinterpret and put down. I hate it, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's so much of it is just like sexual repression, like how many of these people would be normal and well adjusted if they like didn't grow up being like forced fed like it's wrong to be gay or it's wrong to be trans or something like that. How many of them would be normal people nowadays if they didn't grow up that way, right?
It's one of the things that I've often wondered, because Nestle I think can confirm that in the Netherlands, I mean, it's not really a big point anymore, whether it's nudity, whether it's being gay. That has been accepted for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's a topic you can freely talk about. You can mention that on pretty much.
We were the first country to legalize gay marriage, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, with the population of like many millions of people, there will always still be many hangovers, but still, for the most part, it's pretty accepting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we were the first country to have full frontal nudity on TV too, in the 60s.
Well, here in the U.S., we like to believe that we're number one in like human rights and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we do the opposite of that legally, where we strip rights from lots of people, make life objectively worse. It's cool and fun, for the whole family. Anyway.
Wait. Here's the thing. Like for what I understand is like they believe that like you have to somehow you have to maintain a normative status about sexuality. Like, oh, this particular social or sexual identity is the norm, and anything that deviates from the norm is degeneracy, and that's why they hate like all the gays and the trans. They are the very existence or open existence. Like if they become visible to anybody, that becomes an existential threat to their own ideology, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Even just existing is a problem for them. Yeah, Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, exactly. You're right. Yeah. Anyway, we can keep going.
Of free thought where people exchange ideas and you're welcome to make mistakes and learn and grow, but you're only exposed to one viewpoint. And that's not really, doesn't help you grow as a thinker, as a person. We're only exposed to one viewpoint. So I think that when we talk to unbelievers or people who've just been brought up in the system, and again, they're not all going to be PhD molecular biologists who know the ins and outs of every evolutionary system. Most people aren't like that, honestly. They know the basic things, like my dad described, right? The Darwin's finches and all of these things like this, the difference between micro and macro evolution. They just haven't thought through these issues before. So I think as Christians, we can just respectfully ask them questions to help them to start to think through these issues, because they're not going to be challenged at their secular university.
That's great.
And if I could add, when we asked...
Well, let's pause for a moment. So, like, the point of going... the point of school in general is, one, to instill people with, like, the basic foundational knowledge of a field, right? Or of a set of fields. That's kind of step one. Step two is also to encourage critical thinking. But, like... So you should definitely have critical thinking, and you should apply it to everything, but, like, you're not going to be taught information that is... I'm trying to think, like, of a way to explain this. Like, you're just trying... they're trying to give you the basics. Like, that's it. They're not going to give you all the arcane, knowledge about some field. They just want you to cover the basics, but also, as you go through your education, as you take, like, English classes and, public speaking and stuff like that, and you learn how to formulate arguments and, ideas and everything, and get these across in concise and meaningful ways, then you can apply those later on outside of school, right? Like, that's what they're preparing you for. They're preparing you for the life outside of school. But you're... most of the time, as a student, you are not really in a position to really, like, debate with your professor on most of these topics, because I guarantee the professor knows a lot more than you do. So if you go in and you think, oh, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, like, good luck trying to argue with him or her. Just good luck with that. The professor knows more than you do about this field. I promise. They've thought about it. They've thought it all through.
Jackson, I have to interrupt, because wasn't it you who just mere minutes ago talked about a professor that you had that you thought didn't know more than you?
Oh, no, she knows a lot more than me about a lot of genetic stuff.
Yes.
On that one particular topic, I think she was mistaken, and I happen to be in the right on that, because
I had to
she disagreed with it. No, I know. Yeah, I know you're not the only one, but, like, no, I agree. No, she is definitely way smarter than me on, I'm sure, most things in genetics. But, like, on that particular instance of saying, like, junk DNA isn't real, like, there's no evidence for that in the technical literature. And I was actually familiar with a little bit of that at the time I took this class. And so I was like, and also, I didn't make a big deal out of, like, trying to do like a God's not dead sort of, like, standing up and being like, you're wrong. I didn't do that. I just went to her after class and was like, hey, can I ask you about this thing?
Jackson, in all fairness, it could be far worse. Let's say you were studying in Tampa, Florida, and you were, I don't know, studying HR. You could have a professor who was advocating for public executions and, what's even better, public mutilations of people. I mean, it could be worse. And I want to thank Smitty for making me post the most Dutch link ever in a side chat, which is a link to Phil Bloom. So if people want to check it out, they can go check it out.
Junk's not dead. Thank you, Nestle.
And West of Raya is right. In the 50s, the out group was people of color. In the 70s, it was gay. Now it's trans. There always has to be another group. Religion seems to need an us versus them group. That's 100% correct. You have to have a group that you can point to that the devil is real. Smitty says, I was relieved to see that Phil Bloom was a lady. Yes, I was 5 at the time, and I do recall that my parents were slightly embarrassed when she was on TV. And I was still in the room.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
I'm finished. Go ahead.
All right. Like the comment about like us versus them. It's a very also good comment, because as you may have noticed, these people are always in a constant state of outrage and anger, and they have to maintain that. And the reason why is, again, because if they are angry, then they are distracted from like actual issues that are actually matter. Like, no, let's not vote to alleviate like child poverty or child malnutrition. Let's just pass a bill that prevents trans people from like participating in sports they identify with.
Well,
okay,
and you know, that's they do that.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about when they do that is, so the last time they like conservatives ran very heavily on culture war stuff was in the 2022 elections. And they lost like horribly. They got their teeth kicked on like the majority of I believe it was Senate elections, and also I believe it was Senate elections.
Yeah, it was 2022 as well, the midterm, right?
Yeah, that was the midterms of 2022, and Republicans ran like all of them, or not all of them, but like a lot of them ran on like, yeah, we're gonna take out trans people for realsies this time. We're gonna pass all sorts of like laws to ban them from being in public, basically. And the public overwhelmingly rejected these politicians who did that. They were like, no, we're not interested in this garbage messaging. And they didn't. The funny thing is, the Republicans didn't learn anything from it, because they shortly thereafter were like, hey, what if we run on that again for next time? If it didn't work once, it'll work next. If at first you don't succeed, try again, right? So I don't know. It's pretty crazy. All right, we can keep going.
The questions, what we find is the vast majority don't even have basic answers. It's more of an emotional belief system. And we, myself, Mark, there's other people who are involved in evangelism. We've talked to hundreds, thousands of people, range from people from the NIH, PhD biologists, chemists, medical doctors,
You've talked
engineers,
to biologists and chemists.
And basically, we're flexible in how we talk to people. People that are friendly and want to have an open discussion and look at the evidence. We kind of approach it one way. People a little bit more like proud and stuff like that. To be honest with them, we really go in and use polemics, and we go right into the origin of life. And how can their worldview explain the origin of life with the complexity?
Wait a second, he's just giving up the game?
How it could get started.
He's literally just coming in being like, we do the most like dishonest thing possible. He literally just said we start with polemics and go to the origin of life and how the oh my god, he's terrible.
What's polemics?
Just it's just argumentation. Like, they're just being purposefully like argumentative. They're not trying to contrarian. They're not trying to actually get at like the heart of the data or the issue. They're just trying to make an argument. It's like he just kind of came out and said that, which is wild stuff. Amazing.
And what you'll find in about 2 minutes is they don't have a starting point. And so what I tell them is, look, you don't have a starting point. There's no use talking about other evolutionary theories because you can't even get started. And so we're trying to show them, and in contrast with our worldview, which really, I don't get too technical, but I say fulfills the law of causality. Fancy way of saying cause and effect. So when you talk to people who believe in Darwinian evolution, they talk about the theoretical effects. but they cannot explain the causation behind it, the intelligence.
What do you
behind
mean?
it. You know, whether we're talking about
There
DNA,
is no
or we're
intelligence.
talking about, you know, the type of chemistry that would need to be involved in forming life.
Mutations.
They really just don't have a foundation for it. And so what we're able to show them is our belief system's not only very
What?
reasonable, but it's what the objective evidence shows. And that
I want to see only just one thing, one piece of evidence that points to creation, and specifically creation 6,000 years ago. I want to see that. If he says that that's where the evidence points, let's see the evidence. And not because we don't know how it happened, therefore God, because that's not evidence.
Well, I have this book.
Yes. I mean, I can't understand how you can say this with a straight face when you have nothing to show for.
Well, Peter, that's his entire job, remember? Because he does like naturopathic medicine, so that's all he does.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I'm again reminded of Cool Hearts Logic saying, "But my holy book."
Right, but my holy book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. I have to say, we're making good ways, by the way. We're 17 minutes in, and we have 30 minutes left. So
look at us,
we might even be able to pull this off in 2 shows, Jackson. What do you think?
It's certainly possible, yeah.
Yes. We haven't interrupted as much as we usually do.
their worldview, which may be surprising to them, but looking at it honestly, it has no foundation. And it's not scientific at all. Matter of fact, it ends up being an emotional. It's really just an emotional type of worldview or decision. So anyways, that's kind of the approach we take. Now, sometimes, like I said, we're a little more aggressive with the, more well-educated people, a little more proud and stuff, but Mark has kind of seen it all.
I think, too, that there's a sense in which we, through just wisdom and practice and also just God impressing upon you what to say to someone, is this person really sincere in that this is really a stumbling block? Because there's definitely people, I've seen my dad talk to many people who just, like I said earlier, they've never heard the opposing view, or they haven't heard it correctly. They've heard what Christians believe about science from the secular viewpoint, which is inaccurate.
Which is that
so they've heard an inaccurate view of what Christians believe, and so then they hear what Christians really believe, and it's a bit of a shock. So is it that
you guys believe in science?
Right, exactly, those type of things. Yeah.
Yeah, because there are really
is someone this is actually a stumbling block. Do we need to use apologetics? Do we need to break out these studies? Do we need to go in depth with this person because they're really struggling with this? Or is it, I like this system because it just confirms what I want to be true? Yeah. I don't want there to be a God, and this is a system which can work, I guess, so that there is no God and life could get here. And no matter how much evidence you throw at me, I'm still going to reject it because I want it to be true. It's the emotional side of things.
Yeah, that is all projection.
Well, it's interesting.
Projection.
Yes. It's exactly what the professor of the God's Not Dead is like. Oh, I hate God and I want him to not exist. Like, is the projection of like, oh, I don't want God to exist, so I believe no. That's no. Nobody makes that argument.
My experience with like creationists who do what they do, like, carry the signs and stuff and argue with you on the street, like, you can never convince them that you don't believe what they think you believe. These people don't listen. Like, they can't listen, because if they listen to you when you say, hey, I don't actually believe that thing, that like invalidates everything they think they know, and so they just can't have that. So they have to like push forward and go, no, you think this, and it's like, no, I really don't. I don't have that belief. When I went to do what?
Okay, no.
I was gonna say, when I went to LSU Baton Rouge, like I encountered a lot of people like this. Like they were always like street preachers and stuff who were out there on Free Speech Alley who would argue with people, and it was fun, but it's very frustrating because they do not listen to you. They will never listen to you. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just I forgot what I was trying to say. It's not just that these people have made up their minds about their own minds. They've also made up the about your mind, basically.
Yes.
Both ways. Like not just them, but they also about you, what you believe, basically. It's really annoying, yeah, when you put it like that.
Yeah, and if you tell them anything at all that they don't like immediately or they didn't come to the conversation expecting you to believe, they're just like, they call you a liar. They're just like, no, you don't believe that. It's like, yeah, I do actually, or I don't believe the thing you're saying I believe. And yeah, they literally just call you a liar, like, to your face. You can't reason with them. They are not able to be reasoned with.
No. But they get incredibly mad if you mirror that behavior and you do that to them.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I mean, the guy you had on, Rob Groen, or Groen, as we would call him in the Netherlands, he got really, really mad when I told him that he actually prefers to remain stupid because he doesn't want to look at the science. And then his eyes bulged and he rage quit.
Yeah.
Because and it's what they do. It's all fine and dandy for them to put up a straw man and then beat you to death with it.
Right.
But if you do the same thing to them, they get incredibly mad. And
I know, it's crazy. It's almost like they hate being strawmanned or something.
Yes. But it's literally all they have to counter your position. I haven't come across a young Earth creationist who actually asked me, "What do you believe?" Oh well, maybe one. But
I've had a couple of interactions like that here, like on like in YouTube conversations, but it's pretty rare.
It's
usually you don't get asked what you think about this or that. You just get told, or they argue against what they think you're gonna say, and it's like, no, I don't agree with that. That's not a position I hold.
We've had one guest on our show who actually said, as an answer to several questions we asked him about the Bible, "I don't know." And this guy dropped off of social media and we can't find him. So if anyone has heard from Joseph Nola, he's a really nice guy. Please let me know, because I'm having weird thoughts as to why he's no longer here.
Yeah, Dapper and I had a conversation with this guy who was like a banker or something like that. And by the end of the conversation we had with him, he didn't say it on, like, during our debate, or discussion, whatever. But right after, so it was just like the host left, and then it was just Dapper, him and myself, and he's like, "Okay, I agree with you," because he had actually asked us for our thoughts on stuff, and so yeah.
It can happen.
Was it off air? Like after the moderator left, or like?
Yeah, it was right after. Yeah. I wonder if I may be able to. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, it was still on air, or was it off air?
Well, the conversation we had was on air. The only part that was off air was right at the end. So right after we leave, he's like, "Yeah, I don't think I can be a creationist anymore," and he like. And
it's often the case that, like, when the situation is not public, they become more open about this. That's my experience too.
Hold on, let me see
if you're so like if you're out in the open and then you get confronted, then it gets to be like a public show almost. But then it becomes private, and it's just the few talking
I found
to each
it.
other. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think this is the conversation. Hold on, let me. Yes. Yeah, this is it. This is the okay. I'll put it here in our side chat, Peter, and then you can toss it out in the live if you want. Okay, so here it is, right there in the side chat. Boop. So that guy, I don't remember. I asked. Yeah, we did this on Steve McRae's channel. This was like, oh god, this was 4 years ago. Jesus Christ.
You're old, Jackson.
How is that 4 years ago? Are
Jackson,
you kidding me?
You're old.
Oh my god!
I have to answer Majestic P back. No, Joseph Nola was
wasn't he Catholic? Like
yes, he was a priest. He was a priest. He wasn't a Catholic. He was a Jesuit priest.
Oh, okay, I got you.
But he was a really, really, really nice guy. I would have loved to talk to him again. But yeah, I have him on Facebook and I had him on Twitter. His Twitter account is gone. And his Facebook account is completely dead. So he doesn't respond anymore. So if anyone knows what happened to Joseph, I would love to know.
All right, we'll just play a couple, maybe 1 or 2 more clips.
You never know. Like the other weekend at our outreach, I was talking to a man who was just completing his MD, PhD combined program. Wow. And I think he said originally he was kind of brought up Christian at a young age and then kind of fell away from it, and then was finishing his MD PhD program. So I started going through with him DNA, biological complexity, some of the studies that I did cover. 3 of the studies were the ones we're going to talk about today, and I'm not exaggerating. After about 30 minutes, he had quite a rapid change in his mind, and then myself and another team member actually. Went through biblical passages, the gospel with them.
Makes me feel sick.
It was a very, very positive, conversation.
Like that makes me feel physically
ill. But you wouldn't have maybe thought that in the first 5 minutes. Right. He's quite resistant in the first 5 minutes. So you never know.
Well, that's really good to hear too.
So I don't know. I think that could be true. Like that could be the case. It's entirely possible it's an everyone clap story. That's possible. Maybe the guy was just like, maybe the kid was trying to be nice to them so they would like leave him alone. He'd be like, yeah. I totally agree with you. Okay, anyway, I'm late to class. I gotta go. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe the kid was just trying to like,
It's like you like when a Jehovah's Witness comes to you and gives you like a card. You just smile and accept it, and then throw it in the bin.
Yeah, you go, oh, thank you. Yeah, toss the trash. Yeah.
I could never do that. I hate it that I ruined it for myself that they're no longer coming to my house, because apparently opening the door in your underwear with one hand down your underwear, wearing a t-shirt, I'm the son of the devil, doesn't work with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Don't you live out in the woods? How do they find your house?
No, that was when I was still living in town. This was decades ago. This was in the early 90s. And that was when they stopped coming to my house. And they came to my house every single Sunday morning. So, yeah.
That's great, Peter. That's awesome.
But I mean, conversation... things do happen the way he tells them. People get drawn into young earth creationism. I'm really happy to say that we have had the opposite. I started arguing with a woman in the comment section on one of our videos where we had a Christian street preacher on, and then the street preacher chimed in and I asked her to come on our show, and that was we picked a date 2 weeks after we started arguing in the comment section. And when she came on our show, she had become an atheist based on the conversation that went on in the chat and the way we treated her and the way the Christian street preacher treated her, which is, I mean, it does happen. I had to change the title mid-show because we found out that she was no longer a Christian.
No, yeah, you're right. It definitely does happen. Yeah, you're right. And I've had conversations, like I said, like with that guy who, by the end of the conversation, they recognize creationism isn't true. That doesn't happen very often. I've had like emails from people who say like, oh, I was a creationist and then I watched some of your videos or whatever. But I've never like it's very, very rare that like during a conversation,
Yeah.
someone like switches or something. It takes time. Like it takes months and it's build up and there's a lot going on in life. Life is complicated and messy. And so it's not just, it's not just a one thing and then like, all the pins are knocked down or something, right? It's a lot of stuff. So.
And I have to say I have had several of those emails so far. And those are the things that keep me going. Every single time I get an email like that, and then I respond to the email, and then I get a response to that. I didn't know you would respond. Yeah, why wouldn't I? I mean, this is literally why I'm doing what I'm doing. So every single time I reach someone and they start thinking and checking the things that we say online, whether or not they're true, yes, that's the motivation. That's the biggest motivator I have. And it's
it's
not
definitely
just
true. It's like life, or it's mind changing, right? When you get those sorts of emails and people tell you like, thank you for your channel, thank you for everything that you've done and put out there. And it's like it only takes one of those to really just like fundamentally change how you think about the like whatever you do, activism or whatever it is on the internet. It just completely changes you.
The first time you get one of those, it's extreme. At least for me, it was extremely moving. I nearly cried when I read it, because when I joined Twitter, I said if I can only change the mind of one person, then I'm satisfied with what I'm doing. And I've got dozens of those emails over the years, and every single one is special.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you want to do?
I think we got like 2 minutes left, so we can just call it for today.
Okay. There we are.
So sorry, saw a message I got. So yeah, so far we're like, didn't you say we're like almost how far in the video did we get?
Let me check. I
think it's 20 minutes, right?
Yes. 19
and the video's
minutes.
How long in total?
19 minutes 38 seconds, and we got 27 minutes and 24 seconds left. So we're almost halfway in.
So we're almost halfway through the video, and they haven't even mentioned the papers that supposedly annihilate evolution yet. Fascinating.
Okay. Isn't it shocking?
That's amazing stuff. Well, it's kind of like that guy who Eric Hovind had on, the engineer dude, and like they spent literally half the show just talking about like how cool the engineer guy is. It's like, yeah, he's cool and all. Okay, that's great. But like, are we going to talk about the evolution stuff? Because isn't that why you brought him on? I don't know.
Smitty said you should try deconverting a Hindu old Earth creationist for a change of pace.
Ooh,
if you can find me one, I mean.
Okay, I actually met one of the. I met like a Hindu creationist at while I was at LSU. I found one of them, Peter, like an anti-evolution Hindu creationist. It was pretty wild.
I mean, I can't get people to come on the show anymore. It's weird.
No, it's true. I mean, you saw the post that I did the other day.
A couple of days ago, we did a show. Arn did a show, and he said that 9 out of 10 times when he's doing a show on evolution, he's got tons of creationists in the chat. Spouting nonsense. So Arn said, let's do a show where we can invite people. So if someone in the chat comes up with an argument, and this was specifically about whale evolution, but he would take any evolution questions or evolution deniers. We had 0 in chat. 0 Peter, for the first time.
That's actually a really good idea. What if we do that for next week? What if instead of continuing this video, what if on Twitter I post like right after the show.
You're not going to get anyone.
No, okay, well that's fine. But like we'll post for next Thursday, like give an entire week for anybody who wants to come. Like, hey, it will be an open discussion. Like anybody who wants to join. So like the three of us, and then any creationist who wants to pop in and talk to us.
Yeah, we can do that. We do have a free spot, so
okay.
we could. It would be one at the time. That's
right. Of course. Right. Of course. Yeah.
So, but we can absolutely do that. I mean, I can post the link to join in the chat, and if you can pin a comment, I've got a page where if people aren't exactly sure on how to join, I can shoot you that link to the page where they can find all the information to join a StreamYard Hangout and how to do it. So it shouldn't be a problem. Smitty, no. I'm not going to call it X, not ever.
I will always dead name Twitter.
It's Twitter.
I will always dead name it.
Yes.
I refuse to acknowledge the musky smell of that X name.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So we're gonna do. So I'll post right after this. I'll post maybe I can set up the video for next Thursday, and then I'll say like, we're gonna do like an open mic, and this is not gonna be a normal thing. I know some channels like all they do is open mics. I'm not interested in doing that. Just out of sheer curiosity to see how many creationists are actually willing to come on and talk about evolution. I'm just curious, because I posted something the other day in which I said, where have all the creationists gone? And I said that
do we have some people who are like already prohibited from joining, or would you even accept Otangelo this time?
Ooh, tough call.
No, I don't have any interest. I've had a debate with him. Like, we had an actual like debate on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on on YouTube, on somebody else's channel. I've talked to him a bunch of times on Twitter. Like, let's get people who haven't talked to me before. Yes. People who have never spoken to me. This will be their first time.
And
that's what we'll do.
And let's get people who, when we ask for the evidence for their position, don't answer with, I don't have to give you my evidence because it's in the Bible.
Yeah, that'd be great. Alrighty. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody who is there in the live chat, and thank you Peter and Nestle for being here, and we will see all of you next time.
Also go watch the new video on the flat fishy tail.
Oh yes, go watch the flounder's tail. Yep, go do that.
Yeah. And the next video, I believe, is on the cartilaginous fishes, right?
The lamprey. So we jump down to the lamprey's tail next. Oh gosh, Nestle.
Is there nothing on the chondrichthyans in the ancestor's tale?
No, I mean they just get like a brief chapter, but then we skip straight from rayfin fish to the cyclostomes.
Damn it.
It's trust me, this script is already very long, so and I'm not anywhere near it. Anyway, all right. Thank you everybody. We'll see all of you next week.
See you next week.